This week, the drama with Cyberpunk 2077 continues as there are apologies being made and a lot more going on behind the scenes. So let's go ahead together as a people and check it out. And welcome to another sensational Sunday. I'm Mike, and this is Mike Texts It Out, and of course it is a sensational Sunday, so I'm here to talk about the tech news as I do every Sunday. And every Wednesday I always come with an unboxing or review. I actually have a super cool unboxing coming up this Wednesday, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Or videos like this, where I do stuff like this and head turns like this. There's also like a button that's shaped like a bell like this that you can press to get notifications for videos like this. But what are we talking about today? Well, a few weeks ago, I did a video about the issues with Cyberpunk 2077 leading up to it being canned from the Sony store, at least until they get it in a playable state. So there's been a few more developments since then, so I want to do a follow-up video to that to talk about everything that's been going on. So following its departure from the PlayStation store, the first thing that happened was a class action lawsuit popped up from investors because they felt like CD Projekt Red misled them on information about how bad the game was, like how many bugs or how close it was to actually being done. To be fair to the investors, this is important information to have because CD Projekt Red only makes one game every few years. Like The Witcher 3 has been out for a long time, and that was the last game they put out. So this game was supposed to be huge, had all the marketing, it had Keanu Reeves. So I understand like why they're doing this lawsuit because as an investor, you feel like you wasted your money because this big game was supposed to come out and be a hit, and it kind of ended up, it still sold a lot to be fair, but because of the issues, that's definitely hurt the sales. Like obviously they probably would have sold a lot more if the game had been in a more playable state, especially on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So typically with the lawsuits, I'm usually like, especially when it comes to like customers being like, oh, I'm hurt because I ate too many Big Macs and now I'm a sue. Stuff like that gets on my nerves. But in this case, I'm like, okay, that does make sense because that can be seen as misleading from like an investor standpoint. You misrepresented the state that the game was in throughout development, and you had people invest because they thought they're going to get this big, all this money was going to come in around the release time. Then it got delayed a bunch of times and it came out and it had a bunch of issues. I completely understand as far as that lawsuit, it does seem like it's kind of like logical and they might actually have a ground to stand on because the game got issues. It's got issues. Like I've even had to stop playing it on PC because I just got to a point where there were so many bugs. Like it's really been small bugs. The more I played it and the more these small bugs popped up, it was just like, I should really just wait until this game is fixed to continue to play it. So I think the fact that it's really not playable is going to be the biggest thing that they have going in their favor with this lawsuit. It'll be pretty easy to prove, especially with Sony having to pull it from the store. Like, yes, this did cost them potential profits. It probably messed up their projections as well as what they're projected to make for Q1 of this year because, this was supposed to be a big game. So I understand the lawsuit portion of it. And then after that, it got quiet for a little bit. They released a few hot fixes. And then, more recently, a couple of days ago, the founder of the company came out with an apology video. And I was like, it's too late to apologize. Actually, it's not that late, but it is a little late to apologize. But I watched the video. He did seem sincere. They had like a roadmap with the video that they put out. And, the roadmap, it had stuff on there. It had, patches and free DLC coming up, but it didn't have dates for this stuff. It had the years, like it had 2020. It said release. It began with the release, which is the release of the game. It had 2021 and then 2022, and it had stuff in between 2021 and 2022, but none of that stuff was actually dated. So, they're trying. There is like a website that they put up, like a commitment site. So I'll link that in the description as well. So they do, like if you want to keep up with the development of what's going on with the game, they did come out with a website or URL you can go directly to for updates. But yeah, the roadmap was kind of a joke. The apology was sincere. I just think at this point, they should just, kind of just be quiet and just go ahead and work on fixing the game and just continue to do good work like they did with The Witcher 3. I think they will get the game fixed. They seem committed to fixing it. But if you haven't bought the game yet, then you should definitely wait until it's in a better state that's bug-free. Like, even if you have a good PC, you're probably still gonna run into a bunch of glitches and feel like, you know, maybe I should just wait to play this game. So if you haven't bought it, just wait. If you have bought it, maybe you got your refund, maybe not. I'm not gonna get a refund. I'm just gonna wait until the patches come out. That's just me personally, but to each his own. But the final thing, shortly after the apology came out, Bloomberg, they did an article about the development troubles with the game. They talked to 20 employees, some of them now former employees, and kind of, you know, asked them questions about the game, like the game's development. So apparently, the biggest takeaway from this article was, even though the game was announced in 2012, they all said the development didn't really begin until late 2016, and they had a new director come in and basically reset the whole game from there. So really the game development didn't actually start until late 2016. Then it seems like there was also a disconnect between upper management and what was actually going on with the game, and they're promising that this game was going to be released like in the same time frame it took them to make The Witcher 3, which was not as complex to create as Cyberpunk. Also, they're developing for cross-generation, like they're developed for PS4 and PS5, and then also on PC. So that was a lot to do in that time frame, like within technically, I guess, 4 years by the time the game released. So really, even though the game had been announced since 2012, it didn't really start development until late 2016. And then there was just a bunch of promises that they were out there making, like when they said the release date was going to be April 2020, a lot of the people working on the game were like, you know, at the earliest, it's probably going to be 2022 before the game's actually done. So this was all stuff that was coming in from those employees that worked there during that period. Some people reported that they were working 13 hours a day for 5 days a week to try to get as much done as they could. And then basically when they decided to release the game, there was that last delay that was like 3 weeks. And I even mentioned that, I was like, what were they really going to do in 3 weeks? But basically they said in that last delay that they were just going to ship the game as is, even though it was a mess. And they delayed it for 3 weeks to try to fix as many of the issues that they knew about as possible before, you know, the game went out. And that's pretty much it. Like, they just never had enough actual time from the beginning to make the game. The other thing that was reported is they wanted to get out in April so they could release on Xbox One and PS4, because they knew that the PS5 and Xbox Series X were coming out later this year. So they wanted to kind of double dip as far as the revenue for the game, even though they were offering free upgrades to the PS5 and Xbox Series version anyway. But, you know, people would have went out and bought the console, and they probably would have just bought the game then. Like, a lot of people probably were going to wait to buy it on the new console, so they probably would have got more revenue if they had released in April and then the new consoles came out. But still, that was the reason that they originally wanted to release in April, even though the game apparently was nowhere near close to being ready. So it really just seems like a lot of the issues stem from mismanagement. And now they learned their lesson. Like, obviously, you had people in higher positions that were over-promising stuff to the media. They even mentioned that the E3 demo was basically cobbled together. That was mostly fake. That was one of the things they mentioned, too, when they showed the demo a couple of years ago. Because I saw that demo, and I was like, okay, they must be, like, pretty close to being, like, at least have a good foundation. They just need to add stuff to the game, you know, like story content. That's what I got from the demo, but apparently that demo was mostly fake. That was another thing that came out, too. They were over-promising stuff in the time frame they couldn't deliver. And then also on top of that, because they went from third person with The Witcher to first person, apparently they had to make changes to the engine to do that. And so they were also trying to, you know, update the code for the engine at the same time while creating this new game. So there was just a lot of issues. It's a really interesting read. I'll link the article in the description. I recommend reading the whole thing because it's really a mess. It's a mess. But let me know what you think. Are you still playing Cyberpunk? Did you buy it? Are you waiting for the release or the official release of the updates that are going to fix everything, hopefully? Or are you just not interested in it? Was it just a game that you just never planned on playing? Let me know, and I will be back on Wednesday with another super cool unboxing. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time.